What's up? It's me, Bianca J. This is blah 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 blah. I'm so sorry. I don't know where my mind is. A long day at work. Okay. What's up? It's me, your girl Bianca J, and this is my little corner of the internet where we all talk all things books, analysis, theory, you name it. And I just finished reading chapter 2 of the Spook Who Sat by the Door by Sam Greenlee, and this part of this series is the analysis where we talk about the themes, the symbols, the ideas that emerge, and yeah. So if you haven't read chapter 2, I read it out loud over there. Right here is where we dive into it. So I'm gonna start off with the themes, and then I'm gonna go into like some questions we can discuss about the work. So some themes you're gonna see is one, racial. Some themes you're going to see is one, racial identity and stereotypes. You're going to see betrayal and loyalty, the power of education, and then hidden motives and manipulation. So let's think about just the racial identity and stereotypes. So we have Dan Freeman. He's a black man. He's infiltrating the CIA. And basically, he talks about his experience as a black man in America. And this is going to be central to the novel's plot. And in this chapter, you see he's constantly reminded of his race, and he's looking at his peers and feeling this expectation to conform to like the way that they do things. But he is infiltrating the CIA. And so he notes that he is among himself and other black peers, and the peers around him have like almost like black nepotism, black bourgeois, like they feel entitled to be in this space. They're the grandchildren or the children of civil rights leaders. They are educated. They're in sororities and fraternities. They feel like the upper echelon of the black culture. This goes into that idea of the politics of respectability. And if you've heard of that, that's the idea that to be seen and respected as a black person, you have to act and be a certain way. And oftentimes that way was like to mimic white society in a sense, right? But we have Dan Freeman here who's not doing that. And immediately he gets there and he calls it like a black family reunion, because or class reunion, I'm sorry. Because everybody knows each other and they're rubbing shoulders. And for the most part, they think that he isn't deserving to be in the room because he doesn't dress in like he doesn't dress in a way that fits the ideal black bourgeois, right? He's not wearing the brands. He's not talking about what he's bought. He's not caught up in like a capitalistic like way of measuring one's self-worth. And so he does get approached by like another black peer, and he's asking him a ton of questions. He's like, well, you're just trying to like penetrate his mind. He kind of just tells him like, fuck off, like get away from me, right? Like get away from me. Like I think he tells him like, I'll kick your ass, like move. And mostly the blacks around him don't pay him any attention, right? They're all racing to get to this position to be the first to infiltrate the CIA. And they're really interested in being the first black to do this, the first black to do that. And I mean, even now we tend to hear these ideas, right? Oh, the first black, da da da. Like I just get so tired of hearing like the fact that we still think there's a compliment to be the first black anything and not to take away from our progress, but they almost use black as a qualifier. It's almost the same as saying you're pretty for a black woman, you know, like you're smart for a black person, which I've literally got on this channel, which is crazy. But with that said, he is challenging stereotypes by even surviving the number of rounds that are going on to be a part of the CIA. Everybody's being put out. Either they're not studying hard enough, or they're not in the best physical shape, or they have some type, they're exposing themselves too much in private. Like the rooms are bugged. There's cameras, there's audio devices on the phones, and we see that Freeman has a little more awareness of his surroundings, and he sets himself apart by not really focusing on like becoming a friend or fitting in. And by the end of the chapter, he's fighting this guy named Calhoun because he's like, look, I'm going to get you out of here. You're going to resign. He's like, no, I'm not. I'm not going to resign. I want this job. I want this position. And he fights Calhoun up until the point that Calhoun dislocates his shoulder. And Calhoun, like, he says he wants a new assignment. He's so mad that he's lost to this black man. What that does for Freeman is he realizes, yes, I won this battle, but in winning this battle, I've exposed myself a bit much, and I need to re-strategize. So we don't go into what that looks like into chapter 4, but he's aware. Like, you see a level of self-awareness about him from how people perceive black people, how whites perceive black people, how black people are perceiving each other, how the CIA is perceiving how they are just utilizing them but not actually seeking to do anything. And he's aware of all of these different dynamics more than his peers, from what it seems. Then we have the theme of betrayal and loyalty here. So we say Dan Freeman's mission forces him to confront issues of betrayal and loyalty. He must decide where his true allegiances lie between his race, his country, and himself. The question of who he can trust and who he cannot trust become increasingly complex. So we're seeing this as an emerging theme. We do see that Freeman, this is our initial introduction, but he is very close to chest. He doesn't want people to really know what school he went to, where he's from, what's he up to, what he has going on. He keeps everything close to the chest. He's not integrating with the other blacks that are seeking the job. He's not integrating with his with anybody really. The only person he makes a relationship with is the sergeant who lets him use the armory, because he started to respect him, and he still didn't show much of himself there. But he's also very aware not to reveal himself. He dresses very shabbily. He doesn't want anybody to know anything about him because he's focused on who can I trust, who is going to be loyal to me, who's going to betray me, and who can I be loyal to, and who should I betray. So he's focused on this emerging theme is coming to place where he's already watching the room and understanding like they might be black like me, but we are very much in competition. And ultimately, we may be both black, but we are coming from two different socioeconomic classes. He talks about how everybody in that room has some type of tie to black nepotism, black excellence, right? And he feels out of place, and the people around him look at him as if he's out of place. What we do have is education coming into a high theme. So we see early on that he is an educated man, and not only is he educated in terms of degrees, right? Because let's be real, people get degrees every day. He's educated in terms of using his intellect to forward his position. He talks about how while everybody is taking these tests and trying to utilize their connections and their resources, he literally spends his days preparing for the physical aspect of the job and preparing for the study aspect of the job. He is treating the training for the job like a job in itself. He's not allowing small hiccups. Like, he understands that sometimes they create these scenarios in which you can self-sabotage and exit yourself out. And he knows that, and he's intelligent enough to not play into that. So education here is a tool for empowerment and social mobility and overcoming social barriers. It allows him to gain access to the room to be a part of the CIA training, but from there, his intellect has to reign supreme over his peers, and he has to be not only educated but intellectually knowledgeable of where he stands and how he stands. Another emerging theme we see is hidden motives and manipulations. Dan Freeman is in the CIA, but the CIA is not what it seems, right? Everybody has a motive and an agenda. And so he's constantly trying to avoid being manipulated by the powers, and he's trying to advance his own agendas, right? So we see this best when he's talking to Calhoun, who he's going up against combat with, and Calhoun dismisses the class, pulls him in. He says, "Look, I don't think Black people should be here. I really don't. It's nothing against you. I just don't think y'all can. And my goal is to get you removed." Just as most people's goal here, the goal of the CIA is simply to prove that they're not racist. They're not actually seeking to hire a Black man. Freeman, I think to some degree, Freeman realizes this, but understands that if I can pass over these obstacles and hoops, then they technically don't have a choice. Yeah. And I think that these things are going to take form, and these are just emerging themes in the work. And I think that they're going to grow. I think they're going to like really be drawn out and fleshed out. Of course, we're only in chapter 2, so we're just meeting the protagonist for the very first time. So now I want to talk about some of the ideas that come to the book. So he talks early about his upbringing and his experiences just as he entered the room, and how he kind of they kind of tell us about everybody's experience around us, that they're these Black bourgeois, the upper echelon of Blackness. And they don't tell us a lot about, well, they do. They do tell us that he is almost the polar opposite of these people. We also learn that he spent time in Korea, that he was in the Marines, that he finished and is educated, and that he's from Chicago. And I think that because he's integrated into other institutions, he understands how I'm really choosing my words here. He understands how the intersectionality between race and ability. And I think that is helping him shape his perspective. He realizes from his background that being Black is not solely enough, and almost he needs to work twice as hard, right? He really shapes out that same idea that I think Black people continue to share with each other and to teach our children, is that because you're a Black person, you're going to work twice as hard to get half as far. He understands that more than the peers around him who have benefited from the work of their ancestors. He is a self-made man, right? A military man. So he in himself is like, no, I gotta do the work. I gotta prove myself. And he's comfortable with that, at least so far. But as he's training through the CIA, we do see him facing challenges. We see his peers beginning to question him and who he is and trying to figure out what he's got going on. We see Calhoun, who's supposed to be like helping with training, but is inherently racist. We see how the general is reporting on the entirety of the CIA's efforts, but their focus isn't really necessary. They don't want to hire a Black person. They're already training up they just want to do enough to say that they're not racist. So these are already some of the challenges that he's facing during his training. So we can only imagine how much racial indifference he's going to see, right? Because he says that the general of the CIA doesn't acknowledge the fact that the CIA is inherently racist as much as he doesn't acknowledge that the sun is going to rise in the morning. It's just the natural way that things are. So he's not fighting against a person who thinks that they're racist. And naturally, most times we aren't. Most people who act in inherently racist ways do not connect with their racism. And if you guys read the Heaven and Earth grocery store with me, you kind of see this same theory in Doc Robbins, right? Where he describes his relationship with the Klan. He's like, oh, we're just a group of guys who love hanging out. And we believe in American ideals. But also, we're talking business. We're not racist. We don't think of it that way. But in action and in being and in thought, you are. And it's so inherent in you, it's not something that you acknowledge. If I had to predict Dan Freeman's future, I would definitely predict that he's going to get infiltrated into the CIA. Of course, he's going to be our protagonist here. I think that in getting indoctrinated in the CIA, he's going to realize that the price may not be worth the pot. I think that's going to happen. And it happens too. We see this a lot in the themes of the works for Black literature. The price of integration is not worth the benefit of integrating. And so I think this is going to be something that he definitely experiences and he begins to flesh out throughout the book. In terms of his desire to infiltrate the CIA, he doesn't really go into his own motivations, which may play into the theme of these hidden motives and hidden agendas. He doesn't explain it, but we do see a man who is inherently aware of his position. And he's also been very clear that he's not looking to gain any capital. He's not looking to be accepted into Black bourgeois. He's not looking for power or status or anything. So that does leave a lingering question of, okay, what if you're not looking for money, you're not looking for power, you're not looking for status, you're not trying to gain friends, what is your goal here? And it does kind of continue the question of kind of his peers. It's like, okay, what are you doing here? Who are you? What's going on? What is his goal? What is his mission? I think those are going to be questions that come up. We do know that the CIA does have motives for training Black agents, and that's literally to show themselves as a non-racial institution, not even to present themselves as, not even to hire one, but to appear as if they are a non-segregated institution, because there has been a great uproar in civil rights and activism and Black people getting a fair chance. So if they can only appear to be giving Black people a fair chance, that's enough to train Black agents. And they say inherently that that's worth the price. So we do know exactly what they want. And I think this chapter is really good at setting up our understanding of who Dan Freeman is and what his role will be. Like, I'm intrigued by Freeman. I think that Freeman is interesting. I think that he's going to show us a lot. I think that already he has shown me that he's not a foolish man. Like, he understands that capitalism is only a way to make us feel as if we're equal, but it doesn't really create equality in itself. So he's an aware person. He's also not interested in integrating into his own society. He's not interested in gaining favor with his Black counterparts. So I think that Dan Freeman himself, interesting name, Dan Freeman, take off the D, and free man, a free man, right? He is free of being institutionalized by capitalism. He's free from being indoctrinated by Black bourgeois society. He's free of utilizing race as a barrier, right? Sometimes we feel like race is so challenging we won't try. He's free from that, but he's also free of the idea of quitting because white person said he is. So he's completely free. He's standing out. It's almost like he's standing outside of American society and looking inside. And I think that's so interesting because when you can take an observatory stance, you are likely to gain more. And so I see him, and I think he is the perfect he's perfectly aligned to be a spy because he does know how to hide himself amongst others, right? He dressed so shabbily and so unthreateningly that most of his peers didn't even look at him, even though he had the highest grades in the class. And he worked so well below the surface that even when the general made his reports, he didn't even consider Dan Freeman. So I think that makes him really wise. So I was really worried that this book was going to tick me off. But so far, I think that I'm just intrigued to see where this goes. And I love that I'm taking us on this journey together because it's keeping me instead of me blowing through a book, y'all know I'll blow through a book. It's keeping me honest. It's keeping me engaged in a way that I have to really think about what's happening and what's going on. So if you're just coming on to board, definitely have time still. We're only on chapter 2. You definitely have time still to catch up with the rest of the book, and join us on this journey. And yeah, I'd love to know what you guys think of chapter 2 so far. What are your thoughts on the work thus far? What themes do you see emerging? What ideas are you looking at? I will probably take a moment to talk about the historical perspective of this work because it does have a lot of controversy around the political statements that Sam Greenlee presents as an author, and this work actually got banned. So I do want us to have that conversation outside, just like an outside perspective of the book. I love a historical perspective when we do analysis, but we'll also look at some sociological things and different things with this work. I think this is a really good opportunity to look at this kind of the same way we did with Invisible Man. So if you like this and you're enjoying this format, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. I will be back. If not tomorrow, then definitely after Thanksgiving. If I don't see you guys, don't hear from you guys, happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy some time with your family, your friends, the people you care about. And yeah, see you soon.